Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. Oh, wait 1 second. It's saying to just try again. There's a technical issue on our side.
Hmm.
Sorry. Do you see that?
I do not.
Okay. All right, everyone. Hello again. I I don't know what that was. Riverside just popped up a thing saying that there was some technical difficulty on their end, but it looks clear now. So, welcome to another inspiring episode of the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. The podcast where we share transformational stories of faith, resilience, healing, creativity, leadership, and legacy. I'm your host, Michelle Ebalaroza Kawano. I'm an author, speaker, certified coach, and I am so honored today to be welcoming Keith Dorscht. I knew I was trying.
Pretty
Keith
close.
is pretty close. Keith is a Christian marriage counselor, speaker, and he is based in Colorado, a man who spent 30 years helping couples build strong marriages and then walk through a divorce of his own after 27 years. What makes Keith's story extraordinary is not just the pain that he walked through, it's what he found on the other side of it: a deeper faith, a more honest calling, and a coaching methodology built not just on what he studied, but what he survived. I am a divorcee also. I was divorced twice, so I understand like
Hmm.
the hardships that happens. But today we're talking story about marriage, divorce, and the shame that tries to disqualify us from our calling, restoration, and what it means to serve others from a place of broken open. I love that, rather than broken down. Aloha, Keith, and welcome to the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm looking forward to this. I see you got
I
your pineapple juice in hand. I hope it's pineapple or coconut or something Hawaiian.
no, just
Oh, just
water.
water. Okay.
But yes,
Great,
I do
great to
have
be here
coconut water
today.
available. uh, it's nice to have you. So, listeners, if this is your first time here joining us, I want to say e komo mai, welcome. Guests have joined us from around the world, including Africa, Australia, Norway, Singapore, Greece, Spain, UK, and here in Hawaii. And every conversation is guided by one word, and that word is aloha. For me, aloha is so much more than a greeting. Everyone hears aloha, but I was given the Aloha Always framework when I wrote my book, Walking in Aloha 5 Steps to Living Your God Potential Life. And that is A, affirmations and actions, living intentionally while taking daily action towards God's purpose. L, leadership and love, leading ourselves first so that we can serve others well. O, overcoming obstacles, finding strength through life's greatest challenges. Health and healing, caring for our whole selves, mind, body, spirit, and relationships. And the last A is acute awareness, living with wisdom, gratitude, discernment, and faith. I know that people hear aloha all the time, but I have been interviewing people now for the better part of a year or two all over the world. And I love to see how people walk in aloha in their own ways across the globe. So, Keith, you've spent 30 years coaching marriages, and then your own marriage ended after 27 years. That's a
Yeah.
story that most people might use as a reason to basically walk away from the work entirely. What made you stay, and what happened inside you that turned that painful season into an even deeper calling?
Hmm. Well, what made me stay was what I was doing as an adult was my desire. I remember from being 13 years old, I had
Wow.
this desire to know I wanted to help people relate better. I got affirmation in my church when parents would say, "Will you take my kid out for lunch and just talk common sense to them?" They knew people would listen to me, and the way I presented things. So even at a young age, there was that affirmation and confirmation. So I think God was equipping me for that. So that was there. And, when God put that in me, I believe he was aware of what would happen down the road. Um,
Yeah.
and so that didn't disqualify me. And then I had those 30 years of working with couples, and the results with those couples were like quite incredible. And you know, aren't you can't deny it that
Yeah.
they were in a better place at the end of either a 15-week intensive or however many weekly sessions I had with them. So the results were still there, and I would still be able to work with them in that way. Um, I did I did take 2 years off, except for less than a handful of couples in 2 years, and some of them were because I'd already worked with their family, and I just wanted to continue supporting the greater family that I took them on. But I took 2 years off to examine myself and look at what I had done that contributed to the divorce. Um, and I had contributed a lot. I had a lot of correcting and realigning to do in my life in those couple years, and continue now. It's 5 years on. There
Wow.
was a second half to that question. What was it?
Oh, the I was just asking what happened inside you. Sorry, my voice.
Hmm,
What happened inside you that turned that painful season into an even deeper calling?
okay, yeah. What happened? Well, I went deep inside. I faced things inside of me that I had never seen before, was aware of before. Like I really saw some root issues inside of me that definitely drove the surface behaviors that my wife and kids had to live with. And a lot of times, those surface things were being addressed. And in the course of my marriage, we had actually gone to 9 different counselors, coaches, sometimes week long intensives, a few of those, a few like every week or twice a week for several months. Like there was serious effort and attempts put into working on those things. And nobody ever brought up the shame um, that I had inside me. It was just what shame drove. My shame drove my defensiveness. It drove me always having to be right, or much of the time having to be right, not being able to listen very well, not being able to be vulnerable, which you need for closeness and intimacy in a relationship. And that got, I became aware of that when, the divorce hit, and it's like, people are going to say, why should I ever work with Keith? He couldn't
Mm,
even save his own marriage, right? And that was like, wow, what was going on there? Well, I wanted to be able to answer that, and in that discovery of that, coming up with the answers I needed was I needed to look deeper and own some of those deep roots that I had there of shame. And the shame, I think, came in large part in my early upbringing, where in my family, for me at least, I have other siblings, but in my case, my parents would use silence as discipline or to show disapproval, like just to communicate disapproval for something that wasn't even like atrocious by any means. It was just different,
yeah.
right? Like we're all different. If I was doing something different, it would be met with silence. It could go 2 weeks, it could go a month. And when you live in a family with 5 people and you're sitting at the table and no one even acknowledges like an existence there, it's you do have the question of guilt. Did I do something wrong? And I was pretty sure I didn't. So then it went to, I must be wrong. I must be bad. And that got that root of shame in me that I never recognized or saw. And I had to overcome that in this process. And it's very
Yeah.
freeing. And it took the divorce to do it. I
Mhm.
would hear people who were divorced and they'd say, I'm grateful for it. I never would be who I am or what I am today. And I always like, what? How in the world could you say that? You know, losing like in one day for me, I lost 7 people in my life. Um, Never heard from them again. Never saw them again except in court. And it was like the death of 7 people. It was hard for all 8 of us. Very hard for all 8 of us. I can talk about me and the 7 people I lost in one day. And they say it's harder to grieve when the people are still alive. And I think there's some truth to that. But do I wish we could have reconciled and repaired stuff? Yes. And I am thankful for the things I went through because I would not be as shame free as I am today. And I don't want to go through life with shame. I've had some people say to me, oh, shame on you, and I stop them. I know it's just a habit sometimes. I say, no, sorry, I'm not going to receive that. I have worked hard the last few years to break free of shame and see God's love for me and his covering. And I won't let anyone say shame on you, even in any way. It's just a horrible
Yeah.
thing to wish on a person.
Yeah. I mean, that is so good to be able to recognize that, because like I said, I've been divorced also.
Yeah.
And the things that make it harder is when there's no admission of things, you
Mm.
know, and you're like, no, what was happening was wrong,
Yeah.
and one of, like, that's one thing that I wanted to go to counseling and everything. And my second husband, I had my first 2 kids with my first husband, and then
Mm.
we got divorced, and then I had my second 2 kids. My second husband, he was like, there's nothing wrong with me.
Oh.
Like, yeah. Like, I was like,
Lucky you. You picked the perfect one.
I know. That's how I was like, how do we fix this? Right? That's
Right.
how I felt. Like, how do you fix it when there's no admission of anything wrong?
Yeah.
Obviously there's something wrong.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
we're we're at the verge of getting separated, and then we ended up getting divorced because he could never say that there was something wrong. And
I was told those things about me, and I could not respond well, appropriately, accurately, honestly. It was like I'm not going to call it a blind spot. It was much bigger than that. Is like that
yeah,
that shame just it's such a pit, but it did not allow me to say, okay, I made a mistake there. I didn't listen well. I'm not listening to you, or I could have done that better if I had another chance to do it. None of those words came out of my mouth. And then the more
yeah.
they would try and pull them out, because rightly so, they needed to hear that I messed
Hmm.
up at times. The more they would pull them out, the more I would just lock down and
Yeah.
not get it. And it was terrible for them.
Yeah, but that is a powerful thing that now you can bring to other people. That's what I always
Yes.
look at, is the
Yeah.
things that we've gone through. It's not just for us, but it's to help someone else. And that
Mm.
is something now that you can bring to other people. And that is powerful.
Yes.
So, yeah, no shame on you. Not,
All right. Yeah.
that is amazing. So, the Aloha Always framework, um, the first A is affirmations and actions. So,
Mm.
what affirmations or scriptures became your anchor in the season after your divorce? The thing that you came back to when shame and doubt tried to take over.
Yeah. So going through the divorce as well as after, like, so 30 years ago, I was an assistant pastor at a church in Toronto. I got a seminary degree. I've been in ministry my whole life. And before the divorce, for a while, I actually don't know how long I would say, but um, if you told me God was good, I would tell you, no, he's not. I'd
Mm,
gotten to that point. I wasn't going to church. I didn't want to hear that stuff. I didn't think it was true for me. So when you lose the goodness of God, it's hard to see anything else as good. You know, the Bible says, "He who finds a wife finds a
Yeah.
good thing." There's no qualifiers on that. It's just if you find a wife, you have a good
Mhm.
thing. And I worked with couples, and I would say, if you don't see that or accept that, you need to realign yourself under the scripture because it's true and it says you do have a good thing. And what I was allowing in my heart slowly over time was to creep in is God's not good. And if God's not good, it's really hard to see the good in other things. And I would
Mhm.
say, well, no, I don't think in my case I did have see good in my wife, and I got so blinded and deceived to everything. I stopped noticing the good that was definitely there. So one of the things I was reminding myself of was the goodness of God, and some of the daily stuff was, 14 hours a day, uh, Air One radio, all worship playing,
Yeah.
filling myself up with that truth and the worship stuff that really communicated the goodness of God. Although there was that Brandon Lake song, God is not against me. And it would come on and I'd be, no, he is against me. There was points where I would say that and I'd turn it off. Yeah, over time. I remember it was last New Year's Eve. I was watching one of the New Year's Eve shows from Nashville as the you know, country music New Year's Eve show, and they had CeCe Winans on, and she was singing "The Goodness of God." And I got out of my chair and I just stood in front of my TV. I wanted to get close to it and just absorb it, and it was beautiful. And only the next day did I think, "Wow, 2 years ago I would have shut that off."
Yeah.
Um, but this, I wanted to move closer to it, so I daily fed my spirit through music. Gratefulness was key, especially in helping manage grief and seeing things to be grateful for. This painting behind me, I bought this painting early on. I'll tilt this up here.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I didn't do it, but and you're an artist, so you can appreciate it. But he's some famous guy, and it's a someone else painted his painting. Anyways, I looked at that, and there's a couple there walking, and when I was dating my wife, when we got engaged, when we go take the kids to the parks, it was a place that looked like that. It was this huge boardwalk in Toronto along the lake, and it had trees along the boardwalk, and then beaches, and then lamp posts. And I remember nights there with umbrellas and the mist and like just all atmosphere. So when I saw that picture, and I thought, I've been there. Those were
Yeah.
good times. I learned to celebrate and be grateful for the good times. It wasn't all bad. And that picture reminds me of it. And then I looked like the name of the picture. The name's entitled Farewell to Anger.
Oh,
Anger.
wow.
Farewell to Anger. That's a funny, because that picture was just good for me, but it was like, you know what? You're going to feel wronged at times about some of the stuff that went on in
Mhm.
the divorce process and stuff, but just like set that aside. Don't let that into your heart and
Yeah.
remember the good times. And here's a really big, colorful picture to remind you. And I see it 700 times a day because I need that kind of reminder. So the music, that definitely reading my Bible, one of the first things I did was when we separated was get a new Bible. I had mine since middle school, and it had a lot of highlighting, and you know chunks of pages were falling out. They were no longer bound. Like, it was well used. But I went and got a new one, and I said, there's things people say, oh, you need to rediscover you, or create the new you, or become the you always wanted to be, and all that stuff. And like, I just wanted to be more like Jesus. And so I did this in the front of my book, and there's
Wow.
14 Old Testament prophecies of who they would recognize, how they would recognize the Messiah, and who Jesus was. He said he will be like this, and then
Ah,
there's the New Testament fulfillment of it. So one of them, Zechariah 9:9, is like he will come in humbly, and Matthew 21:5, he came in on the donkey, humble and meek, filling that prophecy. It's like, okay, that's the solid quality of Jesus. It's Old Testament, New Testament. He showed it. I want that. And then as I read my Bible and came across any of these 14 different ones, I would highlight them in green for growth. Say, this is
mhm.
who I want to grow into and become more, because I had lost, again, so much of that was not my focus, you know. So those are a few things. There's more. I needed more, but those are a few that really helped me. Well, but I will
Ah,
share a verse that also helped me with the shame, and it's Psalm 17:7. It says, "Wondrously show your steadfast love." I just thought like what grabbed me was the word wondrously. I hadn't really asked that extravagantly for something like that. You know, shame wouldn't let me because I wouldn't be worthy of wondrous love. Like maybe just show that you're not mad at me, God. But this said like wondrously show me. And then later on in Psalms, there's a verse where David says, "For you have wondrously showed your steadfast love." I read that. It's like, oh, you asked for it? He did it. And I'm going to start asking him to do that for me. And the word show, wondrously show, the word show means distinguish me. I want to be distinguished, identified by how wondrous your love is upon me. And that was a total opposite for me shift from shame. I was distinguished by my shame. I was protecting it. I was afraid of it. And I wanted to root it out. And I thought nothing is better than God's wondrous love to me. And so I kept going back to that in situations where shame would want to creep in. I would go back to reading that and finding the other. Every verse in Psalms is underlined where it talks about God's steadfast love, steadfast, steadfast. Keith, you went far off. You didn't even see me as good. You couldn't see my love for you, receive it and stuff. And I just went back. I need to know and trust your word again in my life that it's steadfast and it's wondrous. And that act of power of His word really helped me.
that is great. That is amazing. I love that people, use scripture, and I say affirmations. It's right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but I know that God's word is so powerful, especially in those times. And I love that you went ahead and got a new Bible and having all of that. Like, I want to be more like Jesus. So I'm going to see his characteristics. What were they looking
yeah.
for? And I want that.
Yep.
I want to do that now. I'm going to make a note that I
People
want
have
to go.
asked me when I tell them this, like, can you send me that picture of that page?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a note and I'm going to do that too. I just turned 58 this July, and I was like, I want to do more. I want to do
Mm,
more. So,
yeah. You can. That's a great way to do it. There's other things that they tell you that's good, but I really wanted to guard from what social media tells you is like, now find your hobbies and do all that. And there is
yeah,
value in that. But I wanted everything to be anchored to this deeper work. And then, yes, you know, had
yeah,
had to fill my time with stuff and picked up hobbies and things.
that's so good. So, your coaching methodology is built on what you've both studied and survived. What daily action keeps you aligned with that calling, especially on the days when things feel too heavy to carry?
Yeah. For me, that's going to be community because I know in my
Mm,
coaching, like for several years, I worked at a Christian nonprofit pastoral counseling ministry, and people always traveled to us here in Colorado. And so I would have a couple for all morning for a week and another couple all afternoon, so 15 hours. And in my first time speaking with them, I would say, if you want the progress that we're going to experience this week to stay a fixture in your life, you're going to have community outside these four walls or these four lines of a Zoom. You're going to have community outside of that to support that when you go back home. And I'd ask them, who's your community? And it was
mm,
only about a month ago when I was asking someone that the second person said, my family, my parents. 30 years and only two people, when I asked them, who's your community, only two people said, I can go to my parents and I know they will stand me up, dust me off, and point me back to doing the right thing in my marriage. And like that's a problem there. I thought I had community in my personal life until the divorce, and then I would go to church and close friends would just like walk by me, even though I'd try to engage them. They'll just walk by and ignore me and stuff like a leper. I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess my community's not that strong. So on those hard days, um, and so for the couples listening, it could be like, on that day when your spouse isn't responding to you the way you'd like them to, what would Keith say is one thing to do that day, is reach out to that community. I always ask people to increase the number of people in their community and go deeper with all of them. Go deeper with all of them. Be vulnerable, honest, so that when that day hits, and it says like there is a day of evil, it will come. When you have that day, you can go to them and know that you can be open and honest and don't have to worry about shame, and they will support you and love you through that. So I did develop those deeper friendships, and there are people I could call any hour of the day, and they're honest mirrors and reflections back to me. So that's what I implemented and went to, and I've always encouraged my clients to do that. And then this again exposed what
Mhm.
I was lacking in my own life and allowed me
Is
to
that community?
adjust it. Yeah.
Yeah, when I went through my divorce with my second husband, I moved back home to Hawaii. He stayed in Washington, and I my kids, they grew up there, so they had a hard time wanting to come to Hawaii, because they have all their friends and everything. And
Mhm.
I didn't have it in my heart to be like, destroy everything just because things didn't work out with us.
Yeah.
So I allowed them to choose, and so, of course, they don't know anything else. My daughter came here to Hawaii, and she's like, I don't know anything, even
Yeah.
in
That's hard.
school and everything. So it was really hard. So I wanted them to continue to have that
Good.
community, and
Yeah.
so it was lonely for me to come to Hawaii,
Yeah.
but I knew I had to do what was best for them.
Ooh,
And then
that
when I
yeah,
went,
that would be really
yeah,
hard.
it was. And then I went back to visit and things, and then I had people from the church like come to me and was like, I am so sorry. I didn't even know anything like that was happening. And I
Mm.
had to tell them, it's not your fault that I was so good at hiding it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
their fault that I made everything seem so great. I was volunteering at the church and I was doing
Mhm.
everything, bringing the kids in, and all that.
Yeah.
And when dad wasn't there, I made excuses, right? I
Hmm.
didn't say things. I would always make excuses to make things seem so good.
Yeah.
Like, always highlighting, like, oh, he had to work so late last night, so he's sleeping. I'm gonna get breakfast and bring it home. Things like that. So everything sounded like, man, it's just an amazing marriage. But it's not their fault that they didn't know. And
Mm.
so when one of my friends apologized for not being there for me, I had to tell her it's not your fault that I was so good at hiding it, you
Mm.
know. But it was sad to hear her and see her cry, to see how sorry she was that she wasn't there for me.
Mm.
So that kind of thing, right?
And it
You
says
have,
those people do want to be there, right?
yeah,
People do
yeah,
want to help, but
but
and so you
they
just
don't
opened a
know.
door for stronger community with her,
Yeah.
at that
And
point.
that's the thing. I always tell people they don't know what they don't know. So
Mm.
if you
Yeah.
don't open up and if you're not honest and vulnerable enough to say this is going wrong, then how would they ever be there for you?
Hmm.
They can't.
Yep.
They don't know. So
I was
I think,
contracted by 4 large churches in town to handle their counseling needs of their congregation.
yeah.
That makes it tough. That makes it tougher. My shame made it tough for me to go and say, I'm helping your congregants and I need some help. Like I couldn't put that sentence out. Um, Shame wouldn't allow me. But that's really what I needed to do. There was one of the pastors at one of the churches. um, knew because my wife brought it to his attention, not me, you know. And one of the solutions was, well, here's a gift card to a restaurant. Go on a date. Don't talk about kids, finances, or work. Okay,
And
that
it should
that
be good.
that yeah, like I appreciate the attempt. There's investment of their resources, and maybe he knew that's really a big growth step for us at that point, maybe. But yeah, because of some roles I had in churches, it made it difficult. My shame to reach out and build that community, and then seeing that is like we need a little more than that. So
Yeah. Yeah. And
build
one of
that
the
community and access it whenever you need it. Who's that
that
person you can
is
call whose voice is going to be glad to hear you when they pick up the phone, say, "Oh, hey, it's Michelle," and their voice is like, "Oh, thanks for calling." That's who you need. That's the start of those good community people in your life.
yeah, that is so good. It is so important. We're not meant to do this alone, right?
Right.
Any of it. So the L in Aloha is leadership and love. What does it look like to lead couples toward restoration when you've sat in the middle of your own marriage falling apart? And how does that personal experience change the quality of your leadership?
Okay. Uh, so I still use the same methods I developed decades ago. I call my primary method the communication cure method, and I use that in my sessions. And it is it is powerful for clients whether Keith's having a good day or a bad day personally, because it's not about me. It's about honoring the way God designed our bodies to engage in relationship. And so I still use that. And having gone through what I've gone through, I have more passion. Okay, well, here's a question I've asked, and only one person ever got it right. What's the only time in the Bible it says that Jesus got angry? And it's not when he flipped the tables. Okay. It says when he flipped the tables, it's out of passion for his father's house. Out of passion for this, he flipped tables. So I just bring up that story because I am more passionate out of my passion for couples staying together because they really can. There's a lot more hope for them, I see. There are there are things I don't want them to ever have to experience because I've been through it. I didn't want them to get divorced because I don't think it's bad for them. I think it's bad for them. I think it's bad for the country when families disintegrate. Like it's all those reasons. But now it's like, man, I've lived it. I really don't want that. I'm passionate about people not experiencing that level of pain, and I'll flip the tables to do it. Meaning, like, I'm not going to be always as polite and neutral in this session as you may want me to be. I might have been more neutral in the past prior to what I went through because I didn't want to upset stuff too much. But you know what? I'm not helping you if I'm neutral. If there's an issue there and you don't get to it, you don't bring it up, I'm going to point it out a little more quickly now.
Right.
So that really drives a lot of how I work a little bit differently now. I use the same methods. I still have the same goal. My goal for every couple is that they're simultaneously mutually satisfied. That's a big phrase. It's almost as long as your last names. Simultaneously mutually satisfied. Um, so at the same time, both are satisfied. I never meet those couples in sessions, right? People who are satisfied, truly satisfied, they're on dates, they're investing in their family, they're volunteering in their community, their church, they're doing those kinds of things. And so now it doesn't mean perfectly satisfied like all the time. It just like we're good and we know if there is a rupture, we have the skills to repair it. So we'll get back to it within a day or two. So simultaneously mutually satisfied and enjoying each other. Joy is a big Bible word. Jesus said, I came that your joy would be complete. I thought you came to be the sacrifice for my sins. Well, that and that your joy would be complete. He wants that joy is his wondrous love towards me that gets rid of my shame and covers that. So that's
Mhm.
really important. Now, what that looks like for every couple is going to be a different path because there's different reasons why they got to where they got to, just like I have my own different reasons. But ultimately, the goal is who doesn't want mutually satisfied and enjoying each other? That's that's the goal that I want for them. So I work towards that.
Yeah,
And
that
I
is
wasn't honest in my life about that. I could not ask
mhm.
those questions of myself and my wife and
Yeah.
be okay with the answers.
You mentioned passion, and you're more passionate. You're not going to be as neutral. You're going to flip tables. No,
We're here
but
to do work, right?
right, right. And I actually hear that from you, and I'm like, I really wish that the pastor that I reached out to during
Mhm.
my time of going through a divorce
Yep.
was more like that. Was
Mm.
more passionate about no people work it out. People stay together.
Yep. Yep.
Because I just felt like they were too nice about everything. Like they didn't want to stir things up. They didn't want to,
Almost
and I was like,
pastoral, right?
yeah, so
Like a
pastoral.
like a shepherd, but there's a place. I don't think pastors are equipped well enough. It's not on them. I don't think they get the equipping to do the counseling, and I think they should
Mhm.
primarily be teachers and leaders, preachers like that. So I have
Yeah.
different expectations of pastors. They just don't have the experience of 30 years having mega church pastors and big name people and
Yeah.
stuff like
But
that.
I
Like
think the reason why I reached out to them was because they were the couples
that.
pastors,
Ah,
right?
yep. That's the right person to go to.
Right.
They're in that
Yeah.
position. Yeah.
So, you know, and one thing that they were telling me was that I'm a giver.
Huh?
That's what I
Yes, you
do.
are. Yep.
And so it's like, and what does that do? That's how I felt. I was like, and what are you telling me? What does that do? That I keep giving? Is that what you're trying to tell me? That I keep
Right.
giving? That I keep doing?
Mm.
Right? Was that the solution? When no, he was doing like things. So
Hmm.
it's like, no, no. This was my second marriage, and the one thing that I did say was that my first marriage ended because he was fooling around, right? He
Hmm.
had mistresses. And I said, that's the line that I draw. Like, I
Mm.
cannot, I
Yeah.
cannot do that ever again in my life, right? And sorry, but porn is the same thing.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I said. Porn is the same thing. And so I was like, and I guess when I threw that at, I didn't mean to like say
Right.
that, like, but when I gave it to them that way, I'm like, I can't keep giving, right?
Right.
It's like I am a giving person, but I can't keep giving. I don't understand what you're trying to say.
Hmm.
And so, because he always felt like there was nothing wrong with him, and I felt like there's absolutely something wrong, and they were saying that I'm the giver. I'm like, I don't know how to handle this. So
Yeah.
I ended up walking away. I ended up walking away. I was like, I cannot. So, but yeah,
You
people
didn't have
have
the
their
best support, right? Because whatever support and direction they give you should work for everybody, not just the givers.
right.
Right? There's not
Yeah,
a
it's
unique
not.
solution for you because you're that way. There's something to draw from that, but that's not the place to insert your strength of
Right.
giving.
And you can't just leave it at that.
No.
So that's one thing that I learned, and like we're talking about now is the leadership in love, right?
Hmm.
We do need to look for the right leadership and to have that love not only for everyone around us as a giver, I love everyone, but for yourself too. You need to
Yes.
love yourself enough, you know?
Yep.
So,
I put buying that new Bible as a gesture of loving myself.
yeah,
Uh, that's one
that is
thing.
so
Yeah.
good. So good. Kingdom purpose. You use that phrase in your work. What does it mean to you, and how does it shape the way that you love and lead the couples that you serve? Kingdom purpose.
Mhm. I say, and the Bible doesn't directly say this, but it's extrapolating from verses. I say, when you build the kingdom, if you, my favorite movie is Field of Dreams, um, which is
If you
like,
build it, they will come.
right. Yeah. And this is probably, probably got it more from that movie than the Bible, but it's like, if you build God's kingdom, the king will come. He will, kings weren't always in their castles and then, they were traveling around, but the day they would arrive, if you build the kingdom, the king will come. Now, there's two kingdoms the Bible talks about. There's the good one and there's the not so good one. And you can build either one, and either one, the ruler of that kingdom's gonna come in. So I want to build God's kingdom. I want to bring those things that are of him, light. If we walk in the light as he is in the light, what happens? We have fellowship and the removal of sins. So that's what couples want in their marriage. Those are biblical terms for what they want in their marriage. They want fellowship. They want that enjoyment with each other, and they want to stop sinning and hurting each other. Well, we got to walk in the light as he is in the light. So that would be like one element of God's kingdom. So in doing the work that we do in our sessions, it's like it's being more honest, more vulnerable, less fearful. I spend most my energy and time without outright saying it, but removing fear, right? Why is fear mentioned 365 times in the Bible? Because fear kills relationship. Like you can't be afraid and in relationship in the same second. You just can't. Fear is a function in our brains. Again, this is where I look at how we honor God with how he created us. Our brains in the back is fear. And at the front of our brain activity is love and relationship and treating the people I would want to be treated. And you can't be two places operating at the same
Mm.
time. And so our greatest potential is to love God and love people. If that's our greatest potential, God designed us then to be able to do that. And he did it all with when we have activity up here in the front of our brain. And then that's why he warns us 365, one for every day of the year. Don't be afraid. Don't be back here. Find everything that you're afraid of. And if it's not your life on the line because a deer just jumped on the road, like that's okay to be afraid. There's a physical threat there. If it's anything other than your life is on the line, overcome that fear, get rid of it, because only then can you enter in. Shame kept me fearful. It kept me from moving close to God. It kept me from having closeness with my kids and my wife and my marriage. So getting rid of that fear, that's when that fear exists, that other kingdom's being built, and the enemy will continue to use what we allow with the fear and the bitterness and the resentment and the secrecy and all of that to establish his kingdom. So we got to tear down that and build that up in our lives and see where that's going on. So um, that's why I use that kingdom language.
That is so good. That is important. So, O in Aloha is overcoming obstacles. The biggest obstacle a coach can face is the voice that says, you've been disqualified. That your own story is too broken to help someone else out. How did you silence that voice, or did you learn to walk alongside of it?
Ooh, did I walk alongside of it? I walk, be careful even saying it, I walk more humbly with it.
Mm,
And that, like, I I was very judgmental up until recent years, and especially towards Christian leaders who would fall. I was burned by some as a young kid, having pastors fall into affairs and things, and it just bothered me, troubled me, angered me, and that's a lot of negativity there. But that negativity then, like, produced it in my own life, and
mm,
um, I I was a hypocrite and for a while, and what I was leading people through and to while not practicing it in my own life. Um, So there's that big fall there, and I want so what I recognize is I could go back there again. That could happen to me again. And so I don't really walk alongside. I'm humble to say I don't claim perfect, but
Yeah.
again, I want to keep my passion focused where it is now, and I want to feed that and set my mind on that. But I do have the potential because to go there again because I did it once. I could do it again. Hope it
Exactly.
becomes less likely. So I have that type of relationship with it, and then things I've already said about just battling the the, the pain and stuff, um, as and the shame that comes with it, and going back to God's wondrous love, go back to His call on my life, and I recognize if those people who are going to say, "Well, I'm not going to work with you because you couldn't save your own marriage," I genuinely wish them well and finding a person that's going to help them get to where they want to go to, because it doesn't have to be me. There are other people, and there will be people who identify with some things I say, some things I've been through, and they think I'm going to be a good fit for them. I'm I don't have that rejection issue with that. I just want to see everybody connected to the right people that are going to help them. So I don't worry about if people bring that up. It happened yesterday. and and honestly, it took me a good 3 hours because it happened across social media, and
Hmm.
they just said they couldn't trust me, or something about me because of that fact that I was divorced, and I wanted to hit them hard and heavy and shut them
Yeah.
down. The flesh is still there, and so I waited, which probably something I wouldn't have done in the past either. And I
Hmm.
just said, thanks for letting me know where you stand, and if you have anything you think I might be able to help you with, here I am. And I do hope they find the right person. So I'm probably going to face that the rest of my life. That's where that's a consequence. That's my
Hmm.
consequence. That if I had put into myself and continued to believe in the goodness of God, and then I could see goodness and act righteous ways in my family, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I'm I've only created the opportunity for people to say those things to me, and so I'm responsible for that, and I got to handle it well and maturely. And
It's like you said, it will happen.
yep,
And I, being divorced twice, I'm on my third marriage. People look at that, right?
yep,
And I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. I cannot make everyone understand what happened, and I'm not going to try. I'm not going to, go through. And so when I wrote my book, Walking in Aloha: 5 Steps to Living Your God Potential Life, and the person I was writing about was not even my first two husbands. It
oh,
was someone that I ended up with between marriages, right? And I
uh-huh,
thought, ah, I'm going back to someone that I was with when I was 16 years old.
mm,
Someone knows me, and I felt
yeah,
that security in it, which was not right. It was not good. It was the worst thing. But people look at that like, oh, you're divorced twice. And then the person that you're writing about, you weren't even married to. And I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. And I know that we don't walk in this perfect world, and it doesn't make me any less a Christian. It doesn't make me any less a daughter of the king.
yeah,
Those kind of things people need to realize that you may have done things wrong. You may have things that you regret, but that does not disqualify you from that wondrous love that you're talking about,
mm-hmm,
you know? And that's one thing that people need to really realize, because I see it too often where people get so judgmental and
yep,
they're walking in this way. And it's like, you know what? It's going to happen. But the more and more that I talk about what I've gone through and how God brought me through it, I don't care what they think about my past or anything. I want them to see that God loves you through everything
yeah.
and He's there. So I'm like, I don't care. you know?
What helped me
Yeah.
have that same approach and mindset and attitude and feelings towards it was I think it's just if people want to look it up, it's like a 6 minute clip from The Chosen, but it is the story of Jesus meeting the woman at the well. And I
Yes.
watched it, and he tells her, "Yeah, no, you've had 5 husbands, and the one you're with now isn't even your husband." I think is what he says. But
Yeah.
but like his bedside manner was like, "That's it." Like it really struck me. It was played so well. He carried on to the point that mattered, and it's like, "I've got living water for you," and it's just
Yeah.
like I know you, I know you, I know that. As not that he didn't care. I'm sure he saw the sin in it. He saw the hurt and the pain it caused her, like all of that. But there's a bigger thing here, and it's like, come close to me. That's what matters and stuff. So anybody who can relate to what you just shared, I encourage you to look for that 6 minute and 42 second clip or something like that,
Yes.
and put it
And
on
that's one
repeat.
thing that I actually stood on too is that the women at the well, the
Hmm.
alabaster box, and all of
Yeah,
that, where women were like, "What are you doing? Get away
yeah.
from Jesus." And when I was in Greece. Greece, no, I was in Turkey because I went to Ephesus, and
Hmm.
I actually wanted to buy an alabaster box.
Oh,
And so I actually have an alabaster. It's not a box. It's round, but anyway, it's
okay.
alabaster. And I look at that and I'm like, what she gave to break that for Jesus, right? And so it's
Hmm.
like, that's, what more can we do? We break ourselves for
Did you write
Jesus.
that? Did you write about that in the book? Or did this happen after you wrote your book? Because like
After.
that's okay.
Yes, it was after.
Because there's something about having
Hmm.
those symbols to look at, and
Yeah.
different artifacts and things that remind us. I always wanted those people that cut words out of wood,
Hmm.
like a scroll saw. I wanted the word Lord in capitals above the word wait. So no, wait above Lord. So it was wait upon the Lord.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that was just a reminder that I really wanted to regularly see and stuff, and I wanted to have that on my shelf. I never got it yet, but those types of things help. Those are things to look to, not
Hmm.
as an idol, just as a reminder of some of
Right.
the gods at work here.
Yeah.
Do that.
And that reminded me of not only what was in the Bible, but actually when I went into Ephesus, the Bible, you can read the Bible and you can read what they're going through, but then when you're in the place and you're like, oh my goodness, you know, they had to have had the hardest time preaching
Mm,
the gospel in Ephesus. You know what I
okay.
mean?
Yeah.
That and people don't realize that. You read Ephesians and you're like, "Oh, this is all great."
Yeah.
But no, when you're in Ephesus and you look around and you're like, they were in the middle of all of this, all of the wrong, all of the
Mm,
corruption that was going on and the things, and you're like, and they still preached the gospel. They
yeah.
still brought people to Christ. It didn't change the fact of where they were. And that's the same thing that we need to do in this world. It doesn't change the fact of where you were and the things that go on in your life. It is what you bring, to the kingdom and
Yeah.
leading people to Christ. And I'm like, so those reminders are so, so important.
Hmm.
Oh, so good. What is
I want to
one
say
thing?
you just brought
Uh-huh.
something to mind. I'll just say this with Paul. Paul, Paul had his thorn in his flesh, and here's what I think it was. Because God's grace was sufficient for the
Hmm.
thorn that he had, that thing that always stuck him in the side. People say it could be his eyesight, could be, health related. I started thinking about it, I was like, he had to go back to churches where there was women sitting there because he killed their husbands.
Mm-hmm.
Would that not be like a sword, a thorn in your flesh? That's like, I'd really not like to have to deal with this reminder every Saturday when I go to synagogue or go to teach, and there's these widows because I killed them. Like that would be horrible to live. He'd have to come over his shame. What overcomes that is God's grace overcomes shame, and that's why I think that's quite likely what his thorn was. So how do we, in my own life, overcoming shame? Is one. Paul is an example to us. Paul says, "Follow me as I follow Christ." So don't let that fear stop you. Don't let it stop you from preaching. So many people knew him as the murderer and the enemy of God, but he didn't let that fear stop him from what God later called him to do. And then he can go into Ephesus and preach in those environments and stuff because he so drew on God's grace. It was so powerful in his life.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Ephesus?
No, I
No.
do not want to fly over an ocean. It's too dark, too deep.
Yeah. So it did give me an eye opener on what actually they had to preach in the
Mm-hmm.
area. So it was not good. And like I said, it had to have been so hard for them. So totally different take on Ephesians now.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
But the H in Aloha is health and healing. Walking through a divorce while still serving couples in your coaching practice takes a particular kind of emotional and spiritual endurance. How did you protect your own heart and heal through that?
well, I stopped doing what I was doing. I stopped the coaching because it's it's not wise to be giving when you are needing to receive so
Mm.
much when you're in such a deficit. And um, so I did that. I met with a couple pastors early on, and it was such good moments of they ministered to me in key moments and got me, told me to go to a men's group. And so I started going to a men's group. I went to this men's group for over 2 years, every single Thursday. And like when it was canceled or not happening because of Christmas or something, it was just a hard week. But it was a group of guys. The leader had been doing it for something like 13 years because he's just so committed to men. And the guys in the group were just incredible examples, demonstrations of humility and honesty. It was a very healthy men's group. Like it moved you forward and stuff. And so that really helped me. And then I wasn't looking to go back. It wasn't my goal to get back or be qualified again to do it. It was other people, um, like out of the blue, contacting me. Like I reached out to one guy in Facebook Messenger 10 years ago, and he never picked up the conversation. And then out of the blue, he messages me and says, "Hey, do you want to talk?" I'm like, "Sure." And he was just like, he was here with what was going on in my life. We were going to talk about business and we talked about ministry. And he's like, "You got to get back in." And then there was a timely Sunday sermon I was listening to and all this stuff. But I worked on me for me, not for a particular outcome. Had the support and community of those guys, and
Um,
some pastors and coaches that, and then, um, like because I wasn't doing the coaching, I took a part-time job at a senior citizens home, driving their bus, so driving these seniors to doctor's appointments. And I say they saved my life, um, because there's just things. There's just one lady there who every other sentence out her mouth was, "Love you, Keith. Love you, honey." And it's like, I bristled at it, made me uncomfortable. It's like, it gave me time to work on receiving that. And as I could receive from God and her, they work together. So there's very healing there. I could still serve them when you're taking people to an appointment where they're going to find out they got cancer or something like that, and you can still be there and serve them. As guys, like, I still am going to use you in the
Yeah.
world in ways that you can do. But right now it's going to be a little more humbling, and it's going to be this, and love it.
So good. I love that. Because, yes, we can serve in so many different ways, and it may not be what we were doing before, but God is still using it, and it
Yeah,
is huge to other people.
he knows what
So,
we need. So
right, in any season, right? In
yeah.
any season. So good. So good. The last A in Aloha is acute awareness. Now, your speaker sheet includes suggested um, questions that like were more open. So, what are the questions that matter to you most? The ones that get to the heart of what you are trying to do in this world.
The questions I want to answer are the questions I bring to the people I'm working with.
The questions that matter to you the most.
Okay. Well, one question, kind of goes back to my couples work, where I want them to be simultaneously mutually satisfied. One question I ask myself many times a day is this satisfying? This activity, this conversation,
Right.
this line of thinking, you know? Because if I don't learn well and stay on the tracks of what is satisfying, how can I ever be satisfied in the Lord? It doesn't just because I'm a Christian, it doesn't just suddenly pop in me and I'm able to find satisfaction, Lord. I do the human work of discovering what is satisfying. Is it, sitting in front of the TV for endless hours? Or is it picking up the phone and messaging a couple people and just checking in with people, deepening my community, those types of things, and evaluating those things? So one question that's very important for me is asking, like, am I involved in things that are satisfying? Satisfying things bring no consequence down the road ever. If we are doing something that's gratifying, it will either hit us negatively a second later or 20 years later when we get throat cancer from smoking, things like that. So I want to
Yeah.
get, I'm asking myself that to be better at living in satisfaction and being content, which is a biblical thing like that. Very,
Yeah.
very important.
I think that is so beautiful. The satisfaction. And it's like we live in a world where social media, they do the highlight reels and everyone's looking at all the all of the highlights and things like that. I was and traveling all over the place. And one of my greatest highlights is waking up in the morning and opening up the sliding, well, it wasn't a sliding door, but a glass door, ceiling to top. Just open it
Hmm.
up and there was red foxes outside.
Oh,
I've never yeah, I've never seen a fox. At first I thought they were like big cats because their legs were kind of longer and I'm
uh-huh.
like and their tail was long, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
thought they were cats. Then I was like, no, they're not cats. They're not dogs. What is it? So of course I'm getting my phone so I can take a picture and then finding out that there were foxes, red foxes that were out in the yard. And I'm like, you know, there's so much things that people can be looking at and highlighting and whatever. But I always come back to the creation of God. And that is my biggest satisfaction
Hmm.
and highlight is those things. So it's like, you know, I found out that I have a brain aneurysm.
Oh,
And it was in March that I found out that I have a brain aneurysm. It's I have a really rare brain structure. I only have one ACA. You're supposed to have two, one to the left side, one to the right side.
what's
I
an
have one.
ACA?
The um, something carotid artery, an
Oh. Oh
anterior
boy.
carotid
Yeah.
artery.
Yeah.
Yes, so something like that. And I have one. I have one. Um, it's called a zygos variant.
Hmm.
Crazy at all, but I have one, and so it branches off to the left and right side. The brain aneurysm sits on that Y.
Hmm.
So it's too dangerous for them to do anything about it because then
Hmm.
it'll affect both sides of my brain. Um, one of the the doctors, I love it that people can be just so straight and blunt with me. I ask for it, and he's like, he's like, okay, we can try to treat it, but the one thing that could happen is that if we do anything wrong, just the slightest thing wrong, of course, yes, it could be terminal, or you
Hmm.
could be paralyzed on one or both legs. I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, so don't touch it then.
Right.
And so that's the way that I looked at it. I was like, and so don't touch it then. I, I know that it's there. I don't like worry about it too much. I know that everyone has their time on this earth. God has that in his hands. And I'm like, I am going to do life the way that I think that is the most satisfying to me. I'm not going to spend so much time worried about going to a job. Um, I went from full time to part time because I'm like, I have so many more things that I could be doing than going to work for 8 hours, nine
Hmm.
hours with the drive. I'm like, no. And
Hmm.
so I think that's something that is important to know. Like, yeah, what is satisfying in your life right
Right.
now? What are
You know,
you
you
doing?
you use the
You
word
know?
delight, right? I think when you delight yourself in God's creation, you're 100%
Yeah.
delighting in God and glorifying Him and magnifying Him, and delight yourself, find your satisfaction in the Lord, and
Mhm.
He will give you the desires of your heart. And I think, like, just with the
Yeah.
story you shared about the aneurysm, your desire is that it goes away. I think, you know, you're
Mhm.
spiritually fighting that battle by finding the delight in Him and living your life with joy and satisfaction. That's His kingdom. The King will
Mhm.
come. The King is a healer.
Yes.
Things will happen.
Yeah. And that's why I know what it'll take for them to do anything with it. It's not as simple as doing a angio where they can go through
Yeah.
your arteries or anything. It's not that simple. It's not like that. They would have to go through my brain, cranial. That's what they call it. I'm
Yeah.
like, then let's not do
Mhm.
nothing. Let's just let it go, right? I believe that I'm taken care of, and that's what I'm gonna walk in. I'm gonna trust in and know that yes, I'm not gonna do things that would possibly affect the aneurysm by stressing myself out and doing those
Mhm.
things. And one of the doctors was like, yeah, just don't do illegal drugs. I'm like,
Okay.
got you,
Good.
right?
Good.
I know. I'm
Like, you don't
like,
have to cut out coffee or anything, right?
no, no. I was worried
Caffeine's
about
not a
that,
problem.
like
Yeah.
caffeine or even flying. That was one thing
Hmm.
that I even asked about, like even flying. What
Well,
does that
yeah,
do when you're
altitude
flying?
adjustments, not just
Yeah,
from flying, but like, we're 6,500 feet here in Colorado. I would definitely want to know before you go from sea level to 6,500, what is there
right.
danger
What
there or
would
not?
that do?
No.
The altitude
If you're ever
and things
planning a
like that.
trip to Colorado, you know what to look into.
I will make sure I ask my doctor about that beforehand.
I'm really glad that he was clear with like your options
Yeah.
and just made it so clear for you. Like sometimes the decisions that have to be made are a huge stress. And it's like,
Yeah.
seems like you were able to move through that pretty easily.
Well, like I told him that my faith in God is strong. So whatever you have to tell me, you just need to tell me because it's going to be way worse if I try to go figure it out on my own,
Yeah.
right? And then when I said that, he goes, "Yes, and please do not use AI to try to figure out all of
Oh,
this that I'm."
Good advice. Yeah.
I know.
Mm,
That was really, really good advice. I was like,
yeah.
So, Keith, when people look back at your speaking, your coaching, your story, what is the one thing that you would want them to carry away with them about what you stood for?
Yeah. Uh, so something we didn't even really hit on today is uh, how our brains are wired, how our bodies are created, our whole
Mm,
central nervous system. Romans, the book of Romans says everyone is without excuse because since the beginning of time, God's nature and his qualities are made known through nature. So, yeah, we can go look at the ant and we can learn that, oh, it's a hard worker. So, work hard like the ant. And that's, God likes that. But we stop churches don't do it, a lot of people don't do it, they don't look at the brain as it's a creation of God created us this way, and what does it reveal about the creator? And our brains tell us we don't function well when we're in fear, we're very self-centered, and but when we're relational and those parts are turned on and activated, we can be highly relational, we can be compassionate to other people, we can fulfill the greatest command, which is to love God and love others. And as they understand that wiring and remove all the things that get in the way of that, we can live full brained. That helps us win battles against our flesh when our brain is, in control of everything. And that helps us live out um, the Christian principles and values and calling that we have in our life. So I want people to know that God created us to be extremely relational, and our greatest fulfillment and satisfaction in life is when we learn and move into those relationships, knowing that He doesn't call us to anything He can't equip us for. And so
mm,
pursue relationship with God and with people.
that is so good.
There's nothing better
I
in
love
life.
that you said that, he doesn't call you into anything that he will not equip you for.
Yep.
That is so good. So, thank you so much for being here on the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. Mahalo for your courage and the honesty that you brought to this conversation today. You
Hmm.
remind us that our greatest credibility doesn't come from the moments that we got it right. It comes from the seasons that we stayed in it even when everything fell apart. So, can you please share with our community where they can connect with you and your work?
Yeah. It's a really easy website address. It's Keith.coach. So coach is
Nice.
the ending. There's no .com. It's just Keith.coach. And there you can see what different formats of coaching I offer, testimonials, things like that, as well as a couple resources. I created a couple resources that actually create the same results you can get in sessions with me, but you can do it at home without me. And there's a free sample of that on there. You just can look for the communication cure and find that free sample. And it applies all these principles we've been talking about today um, without needing me in there. So go
Wow.
to keith.coach and settle in on your couch and give it a look over.
Ah, that's so good. I'm gonna get in there.
All right.
So
Do
thank
it.
you
Thank
so
you
much.
for having me, and thank you for sharing your framework. I really like um, that. It's powerful. It's deep. It comes out of life. I see a lot of fluff out there. I see a lot of resources and frameworks and things like that, and I almost poke holes in all of them. Just like that's not substance enough. I think having been walked through it in this conversation with you and things you've shared about that, you got something really powerful there in your book. So thanks for introducing it to me and introducing me to your audience.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for everything. Everyone listening today, maybe you've been holding back from your calling because you think that your story disqualifies you. Maybe the very thing that you're most ashamed of is actually the thing that qualifies you the most. Let Keith's story remind you that God doesn't use perfect people, He uses honest ones. I've walked through things, I've walked through a lot, and I know that it is through walking with Christ and knowing that He can use you even in the hardest times, and allowing Him to do that is so key. But until next time, until our next wonderful guest, keep walking in aloha and a huiho. That is, until next time. Aloha.